the opening of Florence Price's Fantasy Nègre No. 1, played by Jeneba Kanneh-Mason. I'm Erica Worth and welcome to this Pianist podcast. Today I am catching up with the pianist Jeneba Kanneh-Mason, who talks to me about the repertoire on her debut album, Fantasies. The album includes works by Chopin, including his Sonata No. 2, Debussy and Scriabin, as well as less familiar repertoire by African-American composers Margaret, Florence Price, and William Grant Still. Hi, Jennifer. It's lovely to have you on the show today. And it's not so long since you appeared on the cover of Pianist magazine. So maybe we should start there. When you were interviewed for Pianist around this time last year, you were looking forward to your debut album, which has literally just been released. And you said the team at Sony Classical was so great to work with. So tell me a bit about that and how you decided on the repertoire.
Yeah, it was quite a long discussion actually. And initially it was the sonatas that we started with. It was the Chopin and the Scriabin, and then it was a discussion of how we would build a story around that. So it was really interesting because initially these were all pieces that I loved, and then later on we started discovering all of these interesting connections, and it built from there.
That is so interesting, actually. So some you'd known a long time, you'd obviously played, and some were new into your repertoire.
Yeah, the Chopin sonata I had been playing for a few years, but then, for example, the some of the Debussys and the Margaret Bonds I started, much more recently. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because obviously the Chopin is a big work. So I'm not
Mhm.
surprised you'd been working on it for a long time.
Yeah, I think with that kind of piece, you want to feel like it's really in your bones and you know it inside out. And also it grows with you. And it was really nice that I started it, around my second year, third year, and then I felt like by the time I was recording it, it was something I was so at home with.
That's so interesting. Yeah, because what's interesting also is that you've got next to it the Chopin Nocturnes, Opus 27. So what made you position those straight afterwards? You said actually that they need to be performed as if you're improvising them.
Hmm. Yeah, well, the Chopin Nocturnes, that was actually my dad's suggestion. He's always loved that pair, and they work really nicely together. And because they're a pair, they're very good to program. And I like that feeling of improvisation because I think that you want to almost be creating it while you're on the stage, and then you get more of that spontaneity. And I think it's more interesting for the audience not to go into automatic mode. And I remember my brother saying sometimes you either want to play it like you're recalling a beautiful tune, or it's like you're discovering it as you're moving along with it. I think it's a nice way to think about it.
Wow, that's so interesting. So sometimes you want to just be in the moment and let
Mhm.
yourself go.
Yes. And I think you can let yourself go by that freedom can come from knowing it so well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what's really interesting, recently, a lot of pianists I've spoken to is they say, of course, you've got to have your program ready at least 3 weeks beforehand.
Mhm.
Do you feel the same that it's just got to be firmly ingrained and that you don't go and change things at the last minute?
I don't like to change things at the last minute. Even knowing the order of the music is very helpful because you want to feel very comfortable playing it from beginning to end. But then at the same time, it's very different with a recording because you are recording them in different orders. Like I didn't record it in the order that's on the album. So it is
Oh,
just a very different process. Yeah. And you can
that
stop and start.
is so interesting. So did you do the biggies first? Did you record the big pieces first, like the two sonatas?
I think I started with the Debussy Girl with the Flaxen Hair because I was like, it was the first day and I was really nervous. I was like, let's start with something calm. And then it was the second day that I went into the Chopin Sonata and the big
Oh,
stuff.
goodness, that's so clever, actually, because
Yeah.
it's almost like you were warming up with the Debussy.
Yeah, and it was my first time recording solo piano music. So I was like, let's do something that's short and calm and easy to start with.
Oh my God, this is so interesting. And how many days did it take you to record the whole album?
It was, we had 4 days booked, but the last day was filming. So it was basically 3 days, which is it's a
Wow.
nice amount of time, I think.
And where did you do the recording?
It was in North London in St John's Church. Hold on. Sorry, I can't remember the exact location. My
Oh,
mind's gone blank.
it doesn't matter. It's in the recording. The details are in the recording
Yes.
in the booklet notes, so don't worry about that. Was it nerve-wracking? Obviously a very different thing to record than to perform on stage. How did that
Mhm.
feel, the difference?
Yeah, I initially was thinking about how it was going to sound for the listeners, and then you realize that you can't really think in that way because you start playing in a different way. And my producer, Jonathan Allen, was really good at getting me to make it feel like a performance. And then that's when all the kind of musical side of the music comes out, rather than thinking I need to get every note right, because you can always, do another take, but you can't create music once it's down.
That's so interesting. I always think, let's say, the more takes you do, maybe it becomes harder.
Yeah, I think so. Because you get into your head and then you've done it like 50 times and you're like, I don't even know what I want anymore. And then also you only have a certain amount of energy reserve, so you can't
Okay.
keep recording forever.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's so interesting.
Mm.
I always think that recording must be quite taxing on the brain because you want to make it perfect, whereas in a performance, you can't make it perfect.
Yeah, that's why recordings are interesting because you think it was easier, but actually you have to come more prepared than you might do in a performance sometimes
How?
because you've got the pressure of time and things like that.
Oh, yes, of course, of course. You can't
Yeah.
just be there for a whole week and do it, can
Yeah,
you?
exactly.
Although you'd most likely be driven, you'd be mad by the end of the week. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I don't know what I'd be recording. By the end of the week, it would just be nonsense.
Yeah. Wow. So also on you've got some well-known composers on the recital disc. You've got Debussy, you've got Chopin, Scriabin, but of course you are championing African American composers in the works of Margaret Bonds, William Grant Still, and Florence Price. Tell us about these works and what they mean to you.
Well, it was very important for me to have these composers on the album because they were composers I came to a lot later, and I grew up with all the big names, and then to discover these, I'd say, underrepresented composers, it was it was very special to me to put them alongside Chopin and Scriabin and
Hmm.
give them as much importance as these names that have been around for hundreds of years. So yeah, in that sense, and also as music, they're very, very different and interesting, and harmonically, they catch your ear. And so I thought it would be nice to have them in the middle of the album and get people to listen to something they haven't heard before.
Yes, and they sound very evocative, like the Margaret Bond's Troubled Water. I
Mhm.
actually don't know that piece, but does it sound like troubled water?
Well, it's based on the spiritual Wade in the Water, which is
Oh,
a song that I grew up listening to. So it was really interesting to hear it in the classical form. And she builds on it really well. She has these amazing kind of rhythmic lines that drive the whole piece.
oh, that sounds very interesting. How did you come across these composers? Were they, did you have to search them out or, you know?
Well, Florence Price, I started with her concerto, and it was the Chineke Orchestra who
Oh,
pitched
yeah.
it to me. So that was in my first year, so about a few years ago. And then William Grant Still, it was actually my piano teacher who found them in the Royal College of Music archives, and she was like, "This piece I think will really suit you." And then the Margaret Bonds that came through Sony. So I've just kind of been fed
Oh my
these
goodness.
composers, yeah.
Yeah. And your teacher at the Royal College of Music is Vanessa
Yeah,
Latarche? Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Wonderful teacher,
She's
yes.
amazing, yeah.
Oh, and what year are you in at the moment? How much longer do you have to go?
I'm in my first year master, so my fifth year.
Oh my goodness. You're still so young. Are you like 22 or something?
I'm 22, yeah. So I've got one, after this year, I've got one more year.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's yeah, it's wonderful. So what I'm going to do now is take you away from the repertoire a bit, and I'm going to ask you some little catchy questions that I think
Mhm.
listeners will be interested to hear. There's about five of them or so. So here we go with the first one. If you could play only one piece from now on, what would it be?
I've now decided that it would be Rachmaninoff's third piano concerto.
Third.
Yeah, because originally I would have said the second concerto, but I've played that so much that I think if it's the rest of my life, let me start with something new.
Oh my goodness. Well, I guess it is the concerto, isn't it? It's harder than this. Oh, I don't know if it's harder than the second, is it?
I I haven't played it, but I think it would be harder. I mean, it's longer and it's bigger. I
Yes.
think there are probably much more notes, so yeah, harder.
Oh, you haven't played it yet. You haven't started.
No.
Oh, when do you think you'll start learning it? No big plans?
Well, my sister's playing it at the moment, so I think I'll let her do it first. Maybe in 10 years I'll start it.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. Is she giving you some good ideas? Do you exchange ideas or issues that you find with your piano playing, technical issues and whatever? Do you discuss them with her?
Yeah, we give each other lessons quite a lot, and I've played that concerto through with her a couple of times and given her lessons and vice versa.
Oh my goodness, that's fantastic. And there's no rivalry there? No.
No, not on the piano. Yeah, that is something that we've never been rivals about. And also, she's a lot older than me, so I've always just looked up to her. I wouldn't feel like I could compete anyway.
Oh, that's amazing. That's wonderful. Funnily enough, one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, do you have any technical issues with your playing? Any technical issues that you'd like to improve?
I think that I would like to feel like on stage I can really get to a point where I'm so focused and centered and able to get rid of all of the external distractions. So I think that's something that I'm constantly working on. And that comes through, I guess, more solid preparation and
Yes.
also more experience as well.
Yes, totally.
Mhm.
You're absolutely right. Experience is everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I guess it is hard to get into that mindset and forget about anything else around you.
Yes, because that I mean, even not necessarily just even the audience making noise, but also you have your own internal thoughts
Oh,
about
yeah,
worrying about things going wrong, the
exactly.
the
Oh God, I've
classics.
got that awful passage coming up, that coda,
Yes,
that horrendous
exactly.
coda I've got to get through. Yeah, I
Mm.
understand that. Um, and is there one pianist you would travel long and far to hear?
I would love to hear if I could go back in time and hear Rachmaninoff live. That would be
Oh,
amazing.
I know. Yeah, he was unique. And I believe you've got really large hands like he had.
I do have very big hands. I don't think they're
Maybe
as big
that's
as
why you
Rachmaninoff.
like maybe that's why you like playing his music so much.
Yeah, I do feel like it does help to have bigger hands for his because he
Yeah.
composes it for himself, I think.
Yes.
Big chords and things like that.
Lots of tenths, I guess, and
Yes. Yeah.
ooh, dear, dear, dear. And anybody living, a pianist today, a living pianist
Mhm.
that you travel long and far to hear?
Yuja Wang. I have heard her a couple of times before, but I always love hearing her play.
Yeah, she's amazing, isn't
Mm.
she? Did
Yeah.
you hear her? She played in London with David Hockney images behind it. Did you see that?
I didn't see it. I would have loved to.
Oh, it was fabulous. Moving images, and she was playing, and you could see her hands from above. It was remarkable.
Oh, that's amazing.
What is it that you love about her playing?
I think the way that she communicates is so clear and her sound is so powerful and it's just very exhilarating being in the concert hall when she's playing.
Yeah. Do you feel a
Mm.
connection? She connects then with everybody in the hall.
Yeah, definitely. She's very, very present in her music making.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is there one concert hall you'd love to play in or you've played in that you think is just remarkable?
I would love to play, well, Carnegie, I suppose.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But I love playing in the Wigmore Hall. That's one of my favorites. And also because it's in London, my family always come. So that's a very
Oh,
nice homely atmosphere there.
oh, because you're from Nottingham, aren't you? Which is my hometown.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Nottingham is great. It's got a great concert hall, actually.
It does.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Um, and you grew up in Nottingham. Did you have good training there when you were young?
Yeah, so my mum taught me for the first 2 years, so from like the age of 3 to 5. And then when I was 5, I went to a local piano teacher and she was called Brenda May. And she was just really brilliant and lovely. And I would go with my sister Konya. We'd have lessons once a week.
Oh, how wonderful. That's great. And what advice would you give to an amateur pianist about how to improve?
I would say having a solid foundation with scales and arpeggios. I know that's the boring side, but then listening to as much repertoire as you can and then
Yeah.
trying to play that yourself. Because I think then it keeps the love alive rather than
Okay.
always doing the boring stuff.
So you yourself, do you start the day off with, or your practice off with playing scales and arpeggios?
Yes, but I actually love doing scales and arpeggios. So it's like
Oh
my
my God,
favorite part of the session.
that's amazing. Wow. Do you try them in different ways, staccato, legato, in different directions, or you just, you
I
know?
I have a pretty similar format to like when I was a lot younger. So I do all my scales, all my arpeggios, all the octaves, then a few Chopin etudes. But I think it's just the
Oh,
routine of that gets me into the right mood and flow.
I guess it's a bit like warming up, like athletes do and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
And I believe have said that if you weren't a pianist, you'd be a middle distance runner.
Yes. I would have loved to have been a runner. The idea of being at
Really?
the Olympics and crossing the line first, that would have been amazing, but I couldn't have done both. So
Oh my goodness. So do you still do sport, or, do you?
I love to run, yeah, but I just do it for fun. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's good. Is it a good mental release for you running?
Yeah, it keeps my mind clear. I think it helps also for me to have the stamina to play all the big concerti.
Wow.
And it's really great to run around London and just yeah, keep your mind clear and just focus on the next step.
That's amazing. That's amazing. My goodness, I'm running out of questions here, but you're answering me. And you give me such great answers. So you grew up in this household with all your siblings. I mean, such things like, were there enough pianos for you to practice on growing up?
Well, we had four pianos, and then there was one better piano, and so we'd do a rotation. But then for all of my other siblings who were playing string instruments, they would go upstairs and practice in the bathrooms and bedrooms. So it was a very, very loud and chaotic household, but we
Oh,
found a way to coexist.
and you had very patient parents, I guess. They didn't mind all the noise.
No, they got used to it and they were next door listening most of the time. And my dad would sometimes come in or my mum would come in and give me a short lesson. Especially when we were younger, they would be, very, very present
Oh,
for the whole process.
oh.
Yeah.
Were they soundproofed? The walls, or no?
Not at all. I could hear everyone while I was playing. So it wasn't, but it was good for me to kind of hone my ear and be able to listen to myself better because when you have to block out the external noise, I think it sharpens your ear a bit.
How fascinating. Well, I guess it's like being in music school with one room next to the other, practice room, so you can hear everybody.
Exactly. Yeah,
Amazing.
in my college, it's quite nice because they have rooms which are completely soundproof. So
Ah,
you are sometimes, it is quite strange. It's like you're almost practicing in a spaceship because it's just your own sound and everything is blocked out because the walls are so thick. So I can practice in either, in silence or with
wow.
people talking around me.
So, what are you practicing on now? Let's say we're getting towards the end. What
Mhm.
are you sitting down practicing at the moment? What's on your repertoire agenda?
Well, I'm still playing pieces from the album because I'm kind of doing a few performances for the album launch. But in terms of new pieces, I started learning Bach Fatita number 5 and Beethoven Sonata number 17, and
Okay.
I'm going to learn Ravel's Concerto in G major. So kind of a few new things bubbling on the side.
That sounds great. Are there any composers that you're not quite ready to tackle yet?
Um, I Schoenberg. But I think
Brilliant.
I just because I studied him a lot when I was at school, and it was just very,
Wow.
very harmonically kind of complex. And I think to memorize that kind of music is quite tricky, that kind of atonal sound.
Yeah, but it's good that you studied him. That's quite remarkable.
It was at at the junior academy, so that was I just
Wow.
remember having lessons on Schoenberg.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, he is quite difficult to handle.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. Oh well, and okay, for listeners who live in the UK, or yeah, and where are you performing? Where can we get to hear you and come and see you this year? Where are we now? Yeah. Are you playing around?
I'm playing in with the RPO, I think in
Oh,
June.
lovely.
Uh, I'm doing the Florence Price concerto.
Fantastic.
And then I think there's a Wigmore coming up in October,
Oh,
which is like a full recital. It's the first time I've done a full recital there with two halves in the evening. So I'm looking forward to that.
fantastic. Wigmore Hall recital. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And does that feature some of the works from your album?
No, that's going to be new repertoire, actually.
Oh,
Yes. Oh, it might include the Florence Price, actually. Yeah.
okay. Oh, well, I can't wait to find out the date and I'll definitely come along.
Thank you.
Oh, well, listen, it's been wonderful, Jennifer, speaking to you. You've given me so much insightful information.
It's been lovely to speak to you too.
Oh, yeah, and thank you so much for your time. I'm sure listeners are really going to enjoy this. So thank you once again.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. That was an excerpt from Scriabin's Opus 11, number 11 Prelude, and it was played by Jeneba Kanneh-Mason on her new album, Fantasies from Sony Classical. Pianist podcasts are free, and a really good way to support what we do is by subscribing to Pianist. Visit our website at pianistmagazine.com and listen to us on YouTube by searching Pianist Magazine.